Alright everybody, so today, before I get started with, the meat of the video, I wanted to give a warm shout out to one of my Twitter followers, Influential Gamer, who went ahead and sent me this really badass tank top of a kitten shooting lasers out of its eyes, and also pooping a rainbow, so super exciting stuff. Anyway, so today's topic is something that I ranted about on Twitter a little bit earlier, and, now that I've had more of a chance to think about it, I wanted to give a slightly more, in-depth clarification of those statements. So, the topic is vegan ketogenic diets. I didn't know these were a thing. I didn't think this was possible until today. I was listening to, I've been catching up on some podcasts. I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and in it he has on Dominic D'Agostino, who is one of the primary researchers on the ketogenic diet. For those that don't know, a ketogenic diet is a diet in which your body consumes mostly fats instead of carbohydrates for energy. When you do a typical mixed, fats and carbohydrates diet, or mostly carbohydrates diet, what happens is that your body uses carbohydrates as its preferred energy source. Now, there's some problems with that, namely it can cause issues with insulin, it can cause issues if you're diabetic, etc. But what happens is, if you eat a diet that is mostly just fat, and you can have protein with it as well, but you do have to kind of be careful, because sometimes if you have enough protein, it actually is enough to kick you out of ketosis. It's enough to, kick your body out of the place it's supposed to be in. But basically, you have to eat a basically no carbs at all diet. And if you do it for, a week or so, what happens is your body switches over to a state called ketosis. And in ketosis, what it's doing is it's using ketone bodies, which are produced from fat, as the primary energy source instead of carbohydrates and glucose. So what that means is your body is burning a completely different kind of fuel source, and so it gets a little bit better at mobilizing and burning fat. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose weight, of course, because calories in, calories out is still the big thing in that. And, if you're still getting in more calories than you're using up, you're still going to gain weight. If you're still getting in roughly the same number of calories, you're still going to maintain weight. You still have to eat fewer calories than you're taking in to lose weight. Now, is it easier to get fewer calories in when you are cutting carbs out of your diet? Probably, because you've got one huge chunk of your diet that you just can't eat anymore. And, you may compensate for that by eating enough, more fat to make up for that. Or, you might not, and you might just lose some weight. But anyway, so a ketogenic diet is basically an extremely low-carb diet. You can have some vegetables. You can't really have most fruits because they have enough carbohydrate in them to kick you out of ketosis. And you have to be a little bit careful on your protein. So your primary energy source is fats. That means lots of oils. That means lots of nuts, lots of dairy products, etc. Not like milk. You want to go for like cheeses and creams and all that. So at the same time, so there are plenty of benefits to eating eating a diet for ketosis, a ketogenic diet, because it is extremely useful for certain populations. Again, if you're diabetic and you have issues controlling your blood glucose, this is great because you don't ever have to, if you're not eating anything that spikes your insulin, you don't ever have to worry about it. You can just eat a ketogenic diet and never have to worry about your insulin levels again. Same thing with actually people who have seizures. So one noticeable effect of the ketogenic diet is that it causes your body to be a little bit more efficient in terms of oxygen usage. So you actually can hold your breath a lot longer, use a little bit less oxygen when you're doing, exercise. And it has a really good neuroprotective effect for the brain. So it actually protects your brain against things like seizures. And it's actually one of the most effective treatments for seizures is just to eat a ketogenic diet for a while. And another interesting fact about seizures is that if you can prevent them, if you can prevent them from happening for a while, they tend to just kind of go away entirely. So, it may be that you don't even need to stick with a ketogenic diet forever if you get seizures. You can just do it for a while, wait for that effect to kick in, and then you're good. And there's other things that it helps too, but that's, kind of the major obvious populations that it's super helpful in a a vaguely medical sense. In terms of general health, longevity, exercise performance, I don't think that there's a huge positive effect. Again, I think it's useful for treating certain issues, and I don't know. Again, I'm not a researcher on this. I'm not the most well read on the topic. So I would go check out Dominic D'Agostino's stuff. He is again one of the top researchers on it. He has a tendency to be a little bit too pro-ketogenic, I think. But then again, it's his life's work, so I can't really fault him for that. Anyway, so he made a statement, so basically the podcast was asking a bunch of questions about ketogenic diets, and one of them was, can you do a vegan ketogenic diet? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely, Google it, blah, 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 and that scared the piss out of me, because I was like, really? A vegan ketogenic diet? You're taking two of the most, keto diets are one of the most broadly restrictive diets that ever, because you're cutting out carbs entirely, basically, very strictly. And it's the same thing with veganism. You're cutting out virtually all of your protein sources. So what you're saying is you're cutting out basically all of your carbs. You're running on fats for energy, and you can have some protein, but you can't even have animal protein. So it's got to be basically tofu and God knows whatever you could pick up from the other stuff you're eating. So what it literally boils down to is basically oils, nuts, avocados, and some veggies and fruits, but not that many of them. That's basically all that you can eat. And that's astounding to me. I mean, again, I can understand if maybe again you were diabetic or if you had seizures and you needed to follow a ketogenic diet by simply just because you had to, and then you had extreme ethical reasons for wanting to go vegan. I can see that. That's basically the places I could see that working or being helpful. I can't see any reason why you should do that for health otherwise. I don't see any reason why you should ever do that for performance otherwise. You're basically, you're hamstringing yourself on cutting out, your major protein sources. So you can't really get enough protein in to maintain solid muscle mass, which of course is important for, long life. Which isn't as good for strength, which is also important for long life. It's not going to impact your cardiovascular system. It's not going to negatively impact your cardiovascular system as much. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you were a runner, it'd be okay. But, if you were training for much of anything else, probably not that great. And then you're also cutting out, basically all of your carbs. And so it's... and that's where you get a lot of your nutrients too. I mean, you can still have your certain veggies and fruits, and that's good. You're going to need to get those nutrients in at least. But it's absolutely astounding. We have a lot of evidence that shows that the more restrictive a diet is, the less likely it is to be good for you. Simply because it's not just about the foods you eat, it's about the proportions you eat them in, it's about, relative dosages and all that, and it's about your activity levels, it's about the rest of your lifestyle. There's so many factors that go into your health. And when you really cramp down and have a really strict diet, that's a bad thing, because then you either you can't adhere to it and then you're super guilty and stressed all the time about it, or B, you can adhere to it and it becomes, sort of on the level of disordered eating, and you're impacting your long-term health by just this by following this plan. So I can't understand why you would take two of the most broadly restrictive diets in ever and combine them, and just slap those two bad boys together. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could Google this stuff and learn a little bit more about it. I mean, I imagine that there's some uses for it aside from the ones I've already outlined. I can imagine there's some good research to back up a few usages of such a diet. I cannot broadly recommend it for general health and wellness for the average person, for the average population. It's just so it's such a mind-boggling concept to me. So that is my daily dose of fitness confusion. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos, and have a good night, everybody.